But now I'm going to head the board, and we're going to talk a little bit more about football. We're going to talk about the spiral pass. So when you watch the game this weekend, you'll see that these quarterbacks throw an excellent ball, and it's amazing how far they can throw it. But all their passes, you'll hear them talk about what a nice tight spiral. And why do they do that? Now, when we talk about a spiral, we mean a ball that's rotating this way, not flipping over like you see the kickoffs. And actually, let's talk about that. All right, this all has to do with momentum. Now, momentum, physics-wise, is the mass. We think about it as weight times the velocity. And that gives us the momentum of the ball. And that momentum all has to come from that quarterback's arm, or in the case of kickoff from the kicker's foot. Now, if we look at a kickoff which flips over this way, notice that it's rotating like this. All that momentum is imparted to the ball going this way, but also it's spinning around the center of the ball in a way that's this way, rotating end over end. Now, why is it better to throw a spiral pass than a pass that kind of looks like this, like many of us probably threw when we were first learning how to throw a football? Well, there we go. The spiral ball will stay in the same orientation, all right? Why is that a good thing? Well, we're going to look at a couple things. First, let's look at why it stays this way when you throw it, and then we'll look at what some of those advantages are at the end. So one of the things we're going to have to look at, we just looked at what momentum is, but now, there we go. We're going to talk about angular momentum. Now, that football is rotating perpendicular to the direction it's traveling. So as it's traveling this direction, it's spinning around this way, right? So I'm going to have Sam come over, and we're going to do a little demo and talk a little bit about angular momentum. So I have just a wheel here that's, if we notice, oops, I got that caught, didn't I? Thanks, Sam. We just got two little handles that are attached to it. And so I'm going to hold it by the string here and have Sam just let go. And when he does, it just falls over, right? That's probably what you expect to. It's only tied on this end. But I'll have Sam grab it again. Let me give it a spin. All right. And let's do it again, Sam. And notice, it didn't fall over. It's spinning a little bit, but notice it stayed up. Now, you may wonder what's happening here, but anybody that's learned how to ride a bike knows you can't stay up on your bike when it's not moving, right?
That's right.
If it's not moving, it's difficult to stand on. And that's that angular momentum. It's the same thing when you were a little kid. You probably had tops, and if you stood them up, they fell over, but if you spun them, they'd stay up. Well, because of that angular momentum, that wants to keep going in the same plane. It wants to keep going in the same direction. So if we go back to our football, while it's spiraling this way, notice as it travels through the parabola, that arc, the same as the kick football did, it stays in this same arc. Now we might say, why do we do that? Does it go farther? Well, yes and no. Because of that spin, now think about that. If some of that quarterback's momentum that he imparted that ball had to be imparted to making it spin. And if you watch the replays very, very closely, you often see as these quarterbacks throw that they end up with their palm down. That's what imparts that spin to the ball. Now, if we were on the moon where there was no air, it actually would be better if they threw it without any spin, because then all their momentum would be going to that ball going forward. But here, where we have air, luckily, that's going to cause a drag, and that's going to affect the ball's flight. And so actually, it's an advantage for it to be spinning. Why? Well, let's look at this. All right? It's easier to catch. Now think about when you see those kickoffs flipping end over end, or sometimes even the punts. It's hard for the receiver to decide where to catch that ball. If he tries to catch it on the end as it's spinning, more likely than not, he's not going to get it. But when the ball is coming this direction, spinning, it's easier for them to pick what's their point of contact. Where are they going to grab that ball? So that's the first thing. It's easier to catch. But it also has to do with the accuracy. When the ball's spinning that way, there's less drag. A ball that's flipping end over end like a kickoff actually is going to have maybe 10 times the amount of drag that a ball that's spinning like a spiral pass would. So it's going to go further here on Earth. Now remember I said a minute ago if we were up on the moon, it'd actually be better if you could throw it without any, because then all the momentum would be going to the forward motion. But here on Earth, where we do have to have wind resistance, air resistance, a ball that's rotating spirally is going to be less affected by that, and it actually is going to go farther. So a spiral pass here on Earth is going to go farther. It's going to be more accurate, but it's also going to be much easier for the receiver to catch. All right, so let's go back a little bit to that. To when you're throwing a spiral pass, maybe I'll have Sam come out because I'm right-handed and there's no way I'm going to do that. But how do you hold the ball? Right, so notice he's only got his fingertips on the laces and not his palm. And as he throws it, if you watch these guys this weekend, as he would release it, what would happen is he'd end up with that thumb coming down and you'll see it spinning this way off his hand. That's when it parts to spin. So when you're watching the football game this weekend, watching some of the replays, I'm sure there'll be a replay of that. Also, if you're watching some of the kickoffs, often you see those spinning the other ways. Those guys are so good, they catch them anyway. But picture, if you're not as good as those guys, how much more difficult it would be to catch one of those than it would this. So, it's kind of fun watching football. It's a lot of fun studying science as far as I'm concerned. And now you see that they're both related. So this weekend when you're watching the game, you'll know why it's so important that they throw a spiral. And those guys can throw a great spiral.